Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire, McIntyre Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement, Northwestern Ohio, your resource for a common sense approach to planning, helping to clarify the complex financial and retirement planning world, is the president and founder of McIntyre Retirement Services, Chris Mcintire, joining us each and every week on the program to provide perspective and guidance. Chris, we always appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Good to be with everybody here today, Peter.
Absolutely. Always good to be with you, Chris, and we appreciate you providing Northwestern Ohio savers and investors, retirement-minded individuals, or even those already retired with the guidance that they need in order to have the quality of life and the confidence in the quality of life in the planning for the financial aspects, the things that support our ability to live the way that we want to live in retirement. And Chris, there's really kind of two big cornerstone pieces of retirement that we all sort of count and depend on. One on the health side, one on the wealth side. Income comes from Social Security and healthcare comes from Medicare. And we really can't formulate our retirement plans without talking about the two of those things.
Probably the two biggest catalysts as people go into their retirement is, the government part of healthcare on Medicare, which usually starts at age 65. Unless you've had a disability, you might be on it earlier. And then Social Security, which is really the foundation of many millions of Americans' retirement income plan, if you will.
Yeah. And Chris, I read a statistic that said that 40% of Americans live off of Social Security exclusively, which sort of tells me one of two things. Either we're not saving enough, and hopefully, we are living below our means and living within kind of a structured amount, and then using Social Security effectively to preserve and protect our personal wealth and assets. But something tells me that it's the former, where a lot of people just haven't saved enough, which either way really tells me we need to make the most out of Social Security possible.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Peter. We help people, time when it is the best timing for them to take their Social Security benefits. That's probably a conversation we have 3 to 5 times a week. And, just had one with a client here this past week. He's 65, getting ready to pull the trigger on retirement, probably 65 and a half in all reality. And he said, should I wait until my full retirement, which is 66 and 6 months, to take my Social Security, or should I take it now that I'm retiring? And for him, it makes sense to take it now. He's transitioning on to Medicare as well. As of, I'm going to say August the 13th. And it just makes sense in their financial situation for him to start drawing Social Security. His regular paycheck's going to stop. They can deduct his Social Security premium or his Medicare premiums right from his Social Security benefit. And he's not giving up that much by waiting in this particular case. And then you throw in all the health considerations, life expectancy factors, their overall nest egg and whatnot. That all comes into play as well.
But it's a very individual kind of decision and process on figuring out when the best time is for you, ladies and gentlemen. So if you would like to run a Social Security report and analysis to help you optimize that decision, make a good decision that you can look back on and say, we did that one right, that is part of the game plan for retirement that Chris Mcintire offers to put together for listeners to this program, viewers to this podcast. And to take part in that, all you need to do is pick up the phone and give a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. You can also go online, McIntyreRetirementServices.com. You can request a time to speak with Chris right from the website there, McIntyreRetirementServices.com, or 800 EP0814. But Chris, just the investment of time to get that Social Security report and analysis, the education process that you help people walk through to make that decision, that can literally make the swing of several hundreds of thousands of dollars over someone's lifetime. That's money that we either get from Social Security, or we have to generate from our personal assets, or that we don't get at all.
Correct, Peter. And we have a nice software program that we use that we can show people in real time. If you take it at 62 versus taking it at 65, it runs an instant computation to share those statistics live and right in front of the client, and shows how much income they would get over their life expectancy. Again, that's an unknown because no one knows exactly when they're going to pass away. So you have to factor all that into it. And, the other side to it, Peter, is, I hear a lot of marketing commercials about Social Security and, all of these other issues as people are generating leads, if you will. But you have to remember, when you're getting money from Social Security and not taking it from your investment portfolio, that investment portfolio continues to grow, pays dividends, and if you're taking money out of that portfolio instead of taking Social Security, you're giving up future dividends and the future value of that money that you're pulling out of there as well. So, finding the balance that works best in your particular situation. It doesn't mean if I take it at 62, I was right. If I take it at 65, I was wrong. It's what's best for your particular situation. And it is really a permanent decision. You have 12 months to revisit it if you wanted to cancel it and do it again. Like, hey, maybe you got downsized at 62, took Social Security, and then 6 months later got the job offer of a lifetime. And you said, okay, I'm going to pay back my 6 months of Social Security benefit that I got a new job. I'll revisit this when I go to retire. So, let's call it a semi-permanent decision. It is permanent after the 12th month of receiving benefits.
Sort of one mulligan available. You can pay it back within the 12 months, within a year's time. But Chris, as you were speaking, it struck me that I have seen some online calculators for Social Security, and those could scratch the surface in being helpful. But the drawback to those is that they look at Social Security kind of in a vacuum. You take it at 62, you take it at full retirement age, you take it at 70, and when is your break-even point? And they can sort of tell you that. But as you were talking about the effects on your outside personal assets, on your other retirement accounts, none of the online calculators, at least that I have seen, take that into account. So we can't think of Social Security as a standalone decision on an island in a vacuum. You've really got to incorporate this with all of the other retirement income planning that you are doing, because with Social Security, you can't reach in and pull out of that if you want to spend some extra money or have an emergency. With Social Security, if you pass away early, those assets don't transfer on to your next generation beneficiaries. That's what your personal assets are going to do. So we really need to make this decision incorporating all of those items and those aspects in the plan.
Certainly, that's where you look at even life insurance. And, here in Northwest Ohio, we deal with a lot of teachers and government employees that are not paying into Social Security. So they have the windfall elimination provision, the government pension offset, that again is another determining factor on, do I take it at 62? Because if I pass away, my wife's not going to get any of it because she has a teacher's pension. So that certainly comes into play. All those other factors, like you said, Peter, and articulated it very well. Social Security is not an island. You don't live in a vacuum. You have to encompass everything around you in making that determination. And again, it is basically a permanent decision. So make sure you've done your homework. It is not the job for the folks that work at the Social Security Administration to analyze your entire nest egg and tell you the different strategies. Their job is to take your application.
Yeah, they don't take on the liability of providing advice because they don't know the rest of your situation. That's on you, ladies and gentlemen, to get that education ahead of time. And because so many people use and depend on these programs, Social Security and Medicare, they receive and rightfully deserve a lot of attention on the program today. We'll take a deeper dive into these programs, what they are, what they do, the benefits, the disadvantages, the pros and cons. We'll talk about the timing of claiming and collecting your benefits, taxes, penalties to separate issues, survivorship benefits to a spouse, how that works, what you need to know before making that decision. But again, for you to make an optimal decision with your Social Security, you've got to talk all of these aspects through and how they affect you and your personal situation. And that's just one of the services that Chris Mcintire offers as part of designing the game plan for retirement. Now, you can do the Social Security part of it alone, but I would encourage you to incorporate that with the larger conversation of formulating the retirement income plan and the game plan for retirement. To do that, no cost, no obligation. Just pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, the majority of the conversation goes into timing. Should I take it at 62? Should I take it at 70? We've scratched the surface, but just in your opinion, is there a universal correct and right answer to this question?
Yeah, there, in a lot of respects, you can eliminate a lot of the other potential pieces and come to that best conclusion for everybody. And,
but it's individual, but it's not a one size fits all right answer.
You're absolutely right, because everybody's situation can be very different. We might be dealing with somebody who has a divorce. We might be dealing somebody who has a deceased spouse. We might be dealing with someone, again, like with the government pension piece in there. So it has to be very individualized and look at all the specific ramifications. Do you have disabled children that you still take care of? And even minor children, there's a lot of different cases out there,
Sure. Yeah. Families are all kind of shuffled up these days, it seems like. So, Chris, let's talk about a few of the aspects that people may not know about Social Security and how it works. First off, the income that we get from Social Security, while it felt like it was a tax and taken away from us while we were working, when they give it back to us, it can potentially be taxed again.
Correct. And there's two different formats for the taxation of Social Security. And obviously, those are based off of income thresholds. So for most Americans, up to 50% of their Social Security benefit is going to be taxed. When they started doing this in 1983, Peter, they have never adjusted those income levels for inflation. So more and more people are paying tax on their Social Security benefit. And then in 1993, they said, all right, if your income exceeds a certain threshold, you're going to pay tax on up to 85% of your Social Security benefit. And I want to be clear here. It's not you're paying 50% of it in tax. You're paying tax on 50% of what you receive, and then up to 85% of what you receive in whatever your current tax bracket is. Big misconceptions out there.
Right. But the thresholds are pretty low, Chris. I mean, like you said, the majority of Americans, certainly the majority of listeners to a program such as this, are probably going to have their Social Security income taxed during retirement. The thresholds for a single individual, only $25,000 before your Social Security becomes taxable. For a married couple, it doesn't double it. It's actually $32,000. And then that 85% threshold, $34,000 for single or $44,000 for a married couple. Pretty low income amounts in the grand scheme of things when you think about that Social Security then being included into the tax scenario and what you are going to be taxed on throughout retirement. Chris, if we miss this fact, then we start receiving less Social Security than we thought and anticipated, and we've got to pull more out of the personal account. So very important to know about the tax implications of your Social Security income, and something that I know Chris works into the plans, ladies and gentlemen, as he is helping you formulate that income allocation, that retirement income plan, your game plan for retirement. If you'd like to get that put together, if you'd like to understand how much of your benefit you actually will be able to get to keep, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, a separate subject, and I want to differentiate here. We were talking about taxes. This next one is going to be penalties on our Social Security income, a separate topic altogether. There is a school of thought that says run out and get Social Security as soon as you can, even early at 62, get it while the getting's good. But there may be several reasons really why you should not do that if you have certain conditions or criteria in your life.
You have to watch how much earned income you're going to have, Peter. If you're going to take Social Security before your full retirement age, mine is age 67. So if I took Social Security at 62 and still wanted to work where I have earned income would be wages, for example, not your pension, not your IRA withdrawals, not rental income, earned wages. You went to work for a buddy part-time. That's one thing. You don't want to make more than about $20,000, just to give it an even number here, and they adjust that number every year. So if your income that you have, your earned income, goes up above $20,000, they're going to start reducing the amount of Social Security you start receiving until you hit your full retirement age.
Yep. And so may be a reason to consider waiting until at least that full retirement age so you don't experience the penalty, which can be significant if you go over those earning limits. I mean, they tell you that you can, if you need it, get Social Security early. But if you are at the same time, Chris, out actively earning new wages, the government doesn't think that you needed to take it early. The government thinks that you are double dipping and therefore are going to penalize you for doing so. So again, taxes on one hand, the potential for penalties on the other. However, Chris, after full retirement age, which, different depending on the year you were born, and you giving away your age a little bit, you're on the younger side for a lot of financial advisors, being that your full retirement age is 67. Mine is as well, but I sort of expect mine to maybe be moved up into the future. But once you reach that full retirement age, those penalties at least go away. The taxes probably never will.
You're correct. And even in the year that you reach your full retirement age, you can earn more income than you could at age 62, for example. I want to say it's in that $44,000 range. And again, that number adjusts every year. So so my birthday is in April, for example. So if I made $50,000 from January 1st to April the 10th in the year I hit age 67, I could file for Social Security in January. I wouldn't be penalized any on that because I don't make enough, wouldn't have earned enough income there to be penalized. The month that you turn your full retirement age, you can make a gazillion dollars if you wanted to.
Well, again, if you've got questions about this, if you want to make sure that you are making a well thought through and informed decision with this foundational cornerstone of retirement planning, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. And just 30 minutes to 45 minutes of going through the ins and outs and crunching the numbers on Social Security literally could make a difference in a swing of several hundreds of thousands of dollars over retirement. So certainly a worthwhile investment of time to get that education, to get that Social Security report and analysis. And to get it, again, just give Chris Mcintire and Mcintire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. So Chris, I tend to feel like we can be very short-sighted when making financial decisions and decisions about money. The decision to take Social Security at 62, 65, full retirement age, 70, that's one that we make. And then the ultimate ramifications of that might not actually be felt until 85, 90, 92 years old, or even after our own lifetime on our surviving spouse. It is actually a decision that impacts 2 lifetimes. Can you speak to how survivorship income with Social Security works and what might surprise people if they haven't taken a deep dive in looking at this?
A very important fact right here, Peter, to highlight for folks, the listeners. Thank you. So let's say my dad receives $2,800 a month and my mom receives $2,000 a month. If my dad was to pass away, my mom's going to get her $2,000 and then the other $800 from my father, assuming they both filed at their full retirement ages. If my mom took Social Security at 62, she wouldn't get 100% of what my dad was getting, but it'd be pretty close. And then take it the other way around. My dad gets $2,800 a month. My mom gets $2,000 a month. If my mom passes away first, my dad's not going to get hers, but he gets to keep his. There is no additional bump for the higher earner.
So the surviving spouse, a widow or widower, would only receive the equivalent amount of the higher of the two benefits, but they would lose 100% of the lower of the two benefits. Essentially, one person can only receive one benefit. They're not going to get two amounts of Social Security income. They only get the higher of the two. And again, kind of in translating that, Chris, if we've got an ideal situation where there were two high income earners and both are receiving their own full maximum Social Security benefits, when one of them passes away, the survivor is going to have a 50% reduction, essentially, in their Social Security income. And conversely, in a situation where one spouse was maybe a homemaker or raised the children, wasn't in the workforce for whatever reason, they're still entitled to typically receive some Social Security. They get a spousal benefit of 50%. But in that case, when one of the two of them passes away, it is a 1/3 reduction in income. So anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of Social Security is essentially going to go away for our surviving spouse, and something we absolutely need to think about and include in our decision when we're claiming Social Security, not have it be a surprise to that surviving spouse after we pass away.
Absolutely, Peter. And it's an area where even a term insurance policy can fill that gap to offset some of that risk, because the risk is one of them passes away in the first 5 years, for example. And then why not hedge that risk where, okay, hey, we paid some pennies to get some dollars of protection. And that's where a lot of times we'll structure a term insurance policy that, hey, we're covering this potential risk if it doesn't, if something happens, because it does happen, guys. I sit in the conference room and look across the table, and we just had a dear friend of ours who passed away at age 60, just happened to have and passed away of a heart attack. So never received any Social Security benefits. So her husband is age 60. If he was retired, he could start taking benefits off of a deceased spouse right now. He would have to watch how much income he made. Remember that earned income even affects deceased spouse benefits. But in this case, he could take his wife's benefits at age 60. Okay, it's going to be reduced, obviously, for taking it at age 60, and then start his at age 67 or even all the way up to age 70 if he wanted to get the maximum, if you would.
Well, because this is such an important part of retirement planning for the vast majority, I would say all of the American public, Chris Mcintire obviously very well versed because he does help people plan out specifically their retirement income, not standalone, not in a vacuum with Social Security, but incorporating this important decision into the rest of your financial and retirement income planning. And if you'd like to go through that process, it, again, can make a big difference and impact ultimately in your retirement outcome, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. I guess finally on Social Security, Chris, how much are you hearing from the folks that you talk to in Northwestern Ohio about concerns for the stability and solvency of Social Security? And do you see any potential answers out there?
It's funny that you brought that up, Peter. I was jotting a little note down here that I wanted to look into this fact as well. We deal with the National Social Security Advisors Association in Cincinnati, Mark and Jim down there. And they typically keep us abreast of legislative changes that may be going on. And obviously with the pandemic, we hadn't done any training. So that was one of the issues I was going to have is see, there had been talk on changing Social Security's cost of living adjustment to adjust it more instead of for urban wage earners, like the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners, which is the typical way they do the cost of living adjustment at the end of the third quarter. So up and coming here, we'll be at the end of September, we'll be hearing about potential increases in payments, to changing that to a cost of living adjustment for the elderly, which would obviously have more of a component in there on medication, healthcare, that type of thing, and less away from housing and probably transportation, because obviously that's not the biggest expenses as for elderly folks.
Well, this year housing has gone up, but medication, I think if you looked on a longer time frame, probably has more significant increases than transportation and housing. So it may be a good thing for retirees if they were to consider switching that over. But again, there are concerns with the solvency and stability of the system. And I know, again, Chris, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to make a good decision, because we don't want to cut ourselves short by making a bad decision and then be further cut short when there are changes made to the system as a whole. And again, that's why you need to talk this over, look at how to use Social Security as an effective tool to protect as much as possible your own personal assets. That's your security down the road, ladies and gentlemen. Pick up the phone and give Chris Mcintire a call to walk through the scenarios, to crunch the numbers, to learn the strategies and the combinations of how to claim and collect Social Security and incorporate it into your larger income plan. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. We've spent the majority of the program, Chris, talking about Social Security, but you mentioned medications and healthcare cost. The other big foundational cornerstone of retirement is on the healthcare side. Medicare is something that retirees count and depend on being there. There's a pretty pervasive perception that Medicare is kind of a cover-all, solve-all, but that's very far from the truth. In fact, the list of things that Medicare does not cover may be more extensive than the list of things that it does cover. And even for the things that it does cover, there's still a cost.
Oh, absolutely. We're dealing with some Medicare issues or troubles, I'll say, with my father-in-law who needs some rehabilitation care, and his Medicare insurance provider won't provide any more of that. And, everybody thinks because it's a government program, it's going to cover everything. Well, it's a government program that is drastically underfunded, and I mean by epic numbers. And so I would anticipate you'll see some more changes to what Medicare pays for, meaning you'll have more out-of-pocket expenses. Doctors get less and less reimbursements, and that's the give and take that's going on here. And you may see more doctors and providers pull away from Medicare and rather go with private insurance because they get more reimbursement, right? That's the capitalistic approach to it, I guess.
The way insurance works, it seems, in healthcare. For that reason, and then several others, Chris, do you see that most retirees, at least ones that you talk to and would listen to a program such as this, most of them are going to want to extend their coverage beyond just the basic traditional Medicare Part A and B coverages?
Certainly, yeah, because you have Part D there, which is your prescription drug benefit, which is very important as we get older, of course. Some folks elect to go with the Medicare Advantage program, which is, kind of a private insurance play, if you will. And the sale there is that it can be cheaper than traditional Medicare premiums and supplemental insurances. Sometimes you get the silver sneakers, you get a lot of the wellness. They have a vested interest in you staying healthy. And so they take a more active role in that Medicare Advantage. That would be Part C. So for those of you listening, this can get confusing. There are 4 major parts to Medicare. You will never have all 4 of them. There is Part A, which comes from your payroll taxes in your working career. Part B covers the doctors. That's your supplement insurance. When you buy, typically pays 80% of the bill, then you find a supplement insurance plan that pays the other 20 or helps you pay the other 20% that you're liable for. Part C is the Medicare Advantage plan. So if you take Part C, you're kind of replacing A and B with a private insurance company. Okay? And then Part B is the drug benefit. That's a good way to think of it. D is for drugs. So most folks will have A, B, and D, or C and D.
So we need to understand the ins and outs, the pros and cons, what these do cover, because there are still going to be costs, co-pays, deductibles, all of those things play into this. Your maximum out of pocket for any given year still could be a sizable chunk of money. You want to be prepared for that. If necessary if needed, know what that cost could potentially be. Chris Mcintire, as part of the retirement planning that he does, as part of formulating your specific game plan for retirement, can help walk you through these important considerations, ladies and gentlemen. Pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, as we were preparing for this conversation, you actually sent along a couple resources from the government. These were official guides, Medicare and You 2021, as well as your Medicare benefits, kind of helpful in overviewing what is and what is not covered. But I will let you know a little bit of Greek. And so I think that it would be more helpful, at least for someone like me, and I imagine a lot of people listening or watching the program, more helpful to have an experienced, qualified guide that can walk us through these and explain it very clearly, not in the Latin and hieroglyphics that are contained in the government guides, although I am sure that you'd be happy to send those out to listeners or viewers of the program if they so desired to get those guides.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's obviously links that you can find on the website to get those articles. Heidi, be happy to get those out to you there. And, Peter makes a good point. We live in a world of acronyms. And if you know what those acronym means, you're halfway there at least. But we can help you with the other half.
Well, again, that's what they are there for, ladies and gentlemen, at Mcintire Retirement Services. Pick up the phone, give them a call. Happy to hear from you, happy to help you in your planning, happy to put that game plan for retirement together. Your specific plan, a snapshot of where you are, documentation of your goals, recommendations on what you should be doing in order to achieve those. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194, the number to call. Northwestern savers, investors, retirement-minded individuals, your resource, Chris Mcintire, there to help and assist in your planning efforts. And Chris, we always appreciate your time on the program.
Peter, it's my pleasure. I hope everybody has a good weekend out there and hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for listening.
Again, give a call, 800-868-1194. Chris is looking forward to helping and assisting in any way he can. Take care.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.